Welcome to our Workshop for Good workshop. I'm going to turn the reins over to our hostess, Lauren Breslaw.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren Breslaw with Long and Foster, and today I'm going to share a little screen here. We're going to be doing a workshop on the double transaction, how to buy and sell at the same time. And I have some awesome helpers here to help us talk all about the process. So let me share the screen here and I'll get everyone's contact info. All right, so we have Patrick Holland with Embrace Home Loans. Hey, Pat.
Hey, Lauren. Hey, guys.
And we have Jim Fleming will be coming with Housemaster Home Inspections, and Helen Krause with New World Title.
Hi, everyone.
Do you guys want to share a little bit about what you do on in the transaction? Pat, do you want to start?
Sure. So in most circumstances, when somebody's buying a home, they need a loan. The only time they don't need a loan is when they are fortunate enough to be able to do an all cash transaction. So I help the client go through the process of getting pre-approved so that when Lauren and her team find their clients the appropriate home that they're looking to buy, that they have their financing in place, they have a price range as well as the type of loan and an approval letter that they can provide along with the contract to help secure a great offer to a seller that hopefully will accept their offer, and then it becomes ratified. And then it goes over to Helen to start that process.
All right. I'm Helen Krause. I'm with New World Title and Escrow. So we really help with the closing process. Like Pat mentioned, once there's a ratified contract, we help either or the buyers and sellers. We can help on either side. On the buyer side, we're really looking to get a title search, do some research, make sure there's no liens that the buyers would be inheriting. We want to make sure we can issue title insurance for them and just gather information. We work very closely with the lender to get all the figures, the realtors, counties, all the different parties that we need to pull information and costs from. And then we close and you actually do the settlement with us. And then we record and disperse the funds. And on the seller side, it's also gathering information to make sure everything's paid off appropriately for them to switch over the property. So a lot of it's behind the scenes, but we get to see y'all at the closing table.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. It's so much fun having them on the team. I always know that it's going to be a nice, smooth process. So definitely my preferred guys to go to. So I'll get a little bit into now the whole double transaction. So buying and selling at the same time. So step one, obviously, is to talk to Pat. You need to figure out your financing first and foremost. It's so personal for each person. So you need to figure out the best game plan. And he's really great about getting you set up from start to finish. And it can be, months ahead of time to kind of get everything set financially so you're ready to go. So there are two scenarios we can do for buying and selling. One is you need the funds to purchase your new home. And the second one is you don't need the funds to purchase. So immediately. So we'll kind of go back and forth a little bit and talk about how we would set that up. So the first one I'll talk about is you do need the funds first. So it really depends on the type of market we're in. Will the seller, you think, accept a sale of home contingency right now? And it's a little bit better now, but it's a huge seller's market. So if you're coming in with a sale of home contingency and someone else doesn't, they may win out. Or maybe they'll accept, if it's a good market for sellers, maybe the buyer would accept a home of choice contingency where you can choose your home first and then the contract will sort of get the ball rolling. So we can talk about, different scenarios depending on the market. And you also have to figure out your comfort level because it is a little bit of a risk depending on which way you want to do it. So you could sell your house first and try to get a rent back before you've chosen a home. But you have to feel confident that you'll be able to find something. If you have a very small criteria, it might be a little bit harder. And maybe you don't want to go that route if you think it'll be a little bit harder to find one you love, because then you might not have a house to live in. If you have a good backup plan, like somewhere to move into, then that's fine. Or if there are a lot of homes coming on the market and you feel confident, that can definitely work. And there are ways where, especially if we go out first and you kind of find a neighborhood that you really love, I can do some searches to try to navigate and say, exactly what type of homes will be available, and can reach out to those that may be interested in selling in that neighborhood. And we can, try to find the home of your dreams. And then another option is we'll find a home first and get yours active as soon as possible. So the way to do that, though, is to prep the house early. So I'll come in and go through the whole house with you. We'll talk about what you have to do to get the house ready, as far as maybe repairs or whatever it has to be in order to get it in top shape. And I'll only tell you the things that you need to do, and not go overboard. Help you stage it, get professional photos. Now, especially, I like doing 3D tours since people are shopping virtually. And so once you have the house prepped, even if you're not quite ready to get it on the market, I think it's good to just get it all set up. So when you find the house you love, we can jump on it. Even as far as I've had people get the photos, and then we don't even put it on the market for a couple months until they feel like they're a little more confident to get it active. But at least it's ready to go. So if you want to find the house first, we can get it active immediately and hopefully under contract quickly. But we'll like to start the search early. So, we'll go looking around at neighborhoods even months in advance and just really see what homes you're gravitating towards. And, I would suggest driving around at night and the weekends just to kind of get a real feel of the neighborhood. Anyone have any thoughts on the first scenario? Okay, the second option is maybe if you don't need the funds first, it's a little more flexible, obviously. So maybe you can wait to do some repairs and the staging and things until you've moved out. And I have a lot of staging furniture as well, like light furniture and then some little knick-knacky things. So I'm definitely happy and really love doing that part of getting the house all ready to go. So you can do that, or you can still get it active while you're living there, but maybe after you've done your inspection with Jim, and make sure that you want to move forward and you're feeling confident that, this house is going to work out. So you can maybe only have a few days or a week overlap of, getting those funds from your purchase, instead of waiting too long. And obviously not having a sale of home contingency, like I said a little bit before, it can mean you have a little bit more negotiating power, be a little bit more aggressive in other ways. All right, so had a couple questions for Pat. I'm going to stop sharing here. So Pat, what is the process to figure out how much a person qualifies for if they haven't sold their house yet? What are their options there?
So everything in any circumstance, when you're buying a house, it's all going to be based on an individual's debt to income ratio. And I always say, before you start, whether it's your first home, multiple homes, the first thing you need to do is to really assess what your buying power is by having somebody like myself do a thorough plan for you. You look at your income, you look at your assets. You have to have a plan before you start taking the time to go out with the real estate professional to look at homes. Because the last thing that you want to do is, find that perfect house and be emotionally attached to it. And then, oh my goodness, but I don't have my financing in place. Because then, Lauren, you can't do your job, which is you've done all the great work, you found them the house, but because their money is tied up in IRAs, or maybe it's in stocks, or maybe it's in their house that they have right now, they don't have immediate access to it in order for us to secure the financing within a tight window in order for you to get them a winning contract on the house. So I always say, I know it's the boring part, is to spending the time with me to get your numbers in place. Finding the house is the fun part. but you want to make sure you take a very, take it seriously. You're getting ready to go out there and buy, you spend 300,000 up to a couple $1,000,000 on a home in this market. That money just doesn't grow on trees. You have to be able to access it, have it readily available. And that takes a thorough pre-approval process, and going from there. So I actually have a very quick process that I try to put my clients through. And that way, what you're dealing with. You as the real estate professional, the clients know, so that they are not which is what we're trying to avoid. We want, buying a house and finding a house is already a little stressful because there's emotions attached to it. The last thing we want to be providing is any bad news along the process. So a good thorough plan is what's key.
Absolutely. How is the low interest rate right now? Because it's historically low. How is that impacting buyers and sellers right now, would you say?
I mean, that's a great question, because I always say right now that your dollar is buying more house. So right now, with the interest rates being as low as they are, when you have interest rates, let's just say, even though they're below 3, let's just say an interest rate is 3% right now. Oh, and I've gotten my assistant bringing me my coffee.
Aww.
So okay, I'm gonna call this. If you $100,000 house and your interest rate is 3%, that almost feels like you're buying a $550,000 house, if your rate was, higher, because your rate, the money that you're borrowing gives you more buying power. So the cost of that house is lower than if it was at a 4% rate. So if an interest rate happens to go up a half a point, that same person, the same qualifications, that payment might go up $200 or $250 or $300 a month because of so that might bring that $500,000 house down to a $475,000 or a $470,000 house. So right now, everyone is trying to take them. They might be stretching a little bit to maybe go up a notch on that home that they were originally. Well, I know we're not going above 500, Pat. And then 2 days later, they find the perfect house at 525 or whatever. And I was like, yep, you can do it because interest rates are nice and low. You can afford this based on our plan, based on your comfort level, et cetera, et cetera. So and it's also right now, as you mentioned before, a seller's market. The seller's market is more because of the supply and demand, which I'll let you talk about. But just like when you've got a lot of people that are out there buying, but the inventory is low, that creates a lot of demand. That creates competition. When there's a lot of competition, you're going to have people bid and overbid for that product. And I always use, and I don't know if anybody's ever been to a car auction before. I've been to a couple, they're pretty cool. But if you go to a car auction and you see that shiny red Corvette or Porsche or whatever, and they put a price at an opening bid on it at $50,000, it's not going to sell for 50 because the auctioneer is going to drive the price up because there's multiple people bidding on that house. Well, it may only be worth $70,000 on a blue book value. But if you have multiple people that think, well, you know what, I really want that car. I'm going to spend 75. I'm going to spend 80. I'm going to spend 85. That drives up the cost or the purchase price of the house. The immediate value might not be there because the appraisals around it might not be up to that number yet. But when you've got multiple people bidding on one house, that helps drive up the current market price, which is what we're seeing in the area right now, in the market right now.
I do believe it's starting to make a little bit of a shift in the last couple of weeks, but it has.
I would agree with you. I would absolutely agree. I've seen it.
Yeah, you know, my last listing, we went 50,000 above asking and zero contingencies, waiving appraisal, waiving inspections. It was a little Wild West action.
Yeah.
It's a little bit better now for buyers. Still really good for sellers though. You know, I think it's
Yep.
evening out a little bit right now.
But it's just like a stock, you know, it's just like stocks, and it's just like the normal environment. You're going to have buyers markets and sellers markets, and there's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And my last question, and I can definitely speak to this as well, how it has helped having you on my buyer side. But what do you think that you do sort of on your end that helps make your buyer more desirable in this tough seller's market?
Well, I've been pretty fortunate in the northern, I've been in the business for 15 plus years. And I've been at the same company for a long time. And I've been very fortunate that I've developed a very good relationship a reputation in the market. So when listing agents happen to see my name on a pre-approval letter, or when buyer's agents see my name, they know what to expect when I put a client through my process. It's going to go to closing. I don't put my name on a pre-approval letter without making sure that my clients are 100% ready to go. Now, does that mean that there hasn't been something along the way that kind of threw a wrench in the works? Absolutely not. I'm not perfect, but I've closed close to 4,000 residential transactions in my 15-year career, and I'm still a student of my industry. There's things changing all the time, but I do pride myself in really making sure that my clients have a great experience, because we were prepared, we planned, we did some goal setting, and more importantly, they were armed and ready when they were going with their real estate agent out shopping. I say shop with confidence.
Yeah, definitely. And I always tell my buyers that it's really important who your lender is, and everyone is a part of the team.
Absolutely.
Or, you know, Pat, I called him at like 11 o'clock sometimes, like, I need a pre-approval letter, and he's on it. And, you know, and just having someone that, you know, you can trust. And again, an agent on the other side feeling confident that the sale will actually go through, which is
that's why I drink coffee at 8 o'clock at night. My
good answer all the time. Exactly. Thanks so much for that.
Absolutely.
Jim, I have a couple questions on home inspections. The resident expert there.
Okay.
Hey, Jim, do you want to share a little bit first about what you do?
Yeah. So I actually do get into the houses, and what I find in this area, I haven't done it for a little over a year now, is I do very few new houses, although I will do new construction. But most houses I do are either built somewhere between the 50s or the 70s, or they're about at the 10 to 12 year age. And those are two unique kind of categories. Now, there's also a third category, which I'm doing on Saturday. I just scheduled one. It's an 1800 one in Old Town.
Oh, wow.
That's a VA refinance, and they won't refinance it without an inspection.
Wow.
So I'm gonna go get dirty on that one. I like getting into those dark, deep corners and finding old things.
Is it a full refinance, Jim?
Yeah, I don't know those specifics, Pat. I just know it's a VA refinance.
Wow.
She told me she was somewhere around 5%. She's getting a refinance, and they won't underwrite it without an inspection.
Wow.
And that's interesting.
Yeah, especially the substructure. So I got to get into that. So anyways, that's kind of a little bit of a one-off, but I do those in Old Town. But I think a lot of what I find is a lot of homes where some people call them flippers or flips. And that's okay. I see good flips. I see bad flips. I've seen the whole spectrum. But it can be very cosmetically pleasing to the eye when you walk into it. And I can share a couple of pictures I've got, by the way, that will be, you know, I have an example where someone actually pulled the permits from the county to do the electrical work. They did all those alterations and opened the electrical panel and the place is about to catch on fire. Just, you know, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but it's 1971 distribution panel. They don't touch these things. It's those important, very basic elements that support your home that kind of get overlooked for the equally important cosmetic things. People putting newer appliances in that the systems in the house can't support. Townhouses where they try to put in full-size washers and dryers, and that's normally okay. The new washers and dryers are more efficient and pull as much power, but the dryer puts out more hot, wet air than the ducting system is designed to support. And then they're going to come back a few months later and say, how come I have a leak in my ceiling? Is it from the bathroom? No, it's from your dryer vent.
Interesting.
Yeah, you see a lot of these kind of little minor issues that actually aren't minor. Roofing is another one. I see a lot of people around here don't inspect roofs. I do everything I can to get on a roof and inspect it. If I can't physically climb it, I use my robot. I'll get it up there on the roof and I'll crawl that robot up there and I'll take very high resolution pictures to inspect the flashing around the vent stacks, the chimneys and things like that. A lot of that's overlooked. So I can share my screen real quick with you and show you a couple pictures. Is that okay?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I love pictures.
Okay, so here we go. I don't know if everybody can see that.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, yeah, so I think the waiving home inspections is becoming, I think it's becoming less and less, but I think a lot of the fault in that is in the home inspection business itself, where mass franchises have people that aren't really qualified, and they just don't do a real inspection. They do a real quick, dirty walkthrough. Okay, anybody can flip all the switches and turn on the faucets and look under the sink and make sure there's no water. You got to go a lot further than that. New roofs with installation defects, I see it all the time. During restorations, you go into the attics. I will get into any attic I can get into. That's a must. They don't put the insulation back down properly, or they don't update the insulation. That can lead to ice dams in the winter. That leads to all kinds of moisture condensation problems inside of walls. I see that a lot too. They don't do the guys will get up in the attics and they'll do the wiring where nobody wants to go up and look at it. And I think even the county inspector, if they pull a permit, sometimes is a little lazy and doesn't want to have to bother getting that ladder and hopping up into that attic and looking at it. They'll just kind of trust the person's opinion and say, oh, okay, yeah, it's fine. I go up there and I see all kinds of crazy stuff. And I already talked about electrical distribution panels, plumbing materials and installation techniques. I see all kinds of funny stuff with that. Decks and railings. Actually, and this is an interesting thing for real estate agents and even Pat, for all you guys to know, Fairfax County is actually the lead county nationwide when it comes to the proper construction and licensing of decks.
Absolutely.
They really have cracked down on that hard, and you can actually Google it, and probably too technical for most people to read, but they call it the Fairfax County Deck Details. It's a PDF document. And if you're having your deck redone in your house, look at that thing and make sure the contractor's following that. It's
That
a great
happened on
document.
my sale of my home, Jim, when I sold my townhouse several years ago. We had to actually install the anchor bolts correctly into the back townhouse. I mean, this is 10, 12, 13 years ago, but yeah.
Down the ledger board, yeah.
Yep.
And
The rules frequently too, don't they? They keep adding more safety standards.
the last big update was about 2012. It's been 8 years.
Oh, has it been?
Yeah.
A while?
Yeah, it's not like every year they come out and they become more and more strict all the time. It's but the latest standards are pretty good and they're not difficult to follow.
Good.
And I will think is that just because it's renovated and it looks pretty doesn't mean it's safe. And an example here, here's a metal vent. I was actually on this one 2 days ago, even though I didn't update the date stamp on my camera, but that looks great. This is a brand new roof. Look at all that nice sealing around that metal vent. Doesn't that look pretty? It's all great. Roofing contractor did it, all permitted, all approved. Then I go to here and I look down here. What's that?
Oh, man.
They didn't see the nail before they put the boot on. That's going to leak. And that's going to crop up someday. Well, then maybe they wanted to waive the inspection and no one would find that. But I come out and I tell the customer, you know, you need to have that fixed because your new roof is not really worth being new if you got that kind of a defect.
Yeah.
This is a newly renovated house, completely beautifully done. This is the one where they pulled all the permits from the county, do all the electrical work, and I rip open the panel and I look into this. This is one of those where I would say, I don't want anybody I care for to sleep in that home tonight because that is a fire waiting to happen. And that's an aluminum main entry lead from the meter going into a lug, and that's been arcing and that's corroding, and that's aluminum going into a copper panel. That's the kind of stuff that you just see that you just, you know, nobody wanted this house was built in 1971, and that's the original 1971 panel. They did everything else to the house but the electrical panel. I wrote it up in the report. I talked to the agent. She called me back 2 days later, asked me for some more details about it. And then they had an electrician come out and he's like, yeah, we got to replace the whole panel. It's like, well, no kidding. So if you look to the left, look to the left here, see how that one looks? That nice gray. It's got all the locks on it, the antioxidant material, nice and pretty. That's how it's supposed to look. Look at that. That's a fire waiting to happen. And nobody would look at that if they didn't have a home. If they wanted to waive the home inspection, that would have never been found.
Yeah, that's scary.
Going into an attic, here's a renovated house. That's a junction box in the attic. That's just where they tied wires together. Didn't even put a cover on the thing. Didn't even use wire nuts. They wrapped it with that cheap vinyl tape you get at AutoZone. Okay, not satisfactory at all, not dangerous. That tape like that in a 120 to 140 degree attic temperature falls apart in no time, and it leaves exposed conductors. And then that's the ground conductor right there. So that's just, it's sloppy work, but it's out of sight, it's out of mind until it causes a problem. Here's one where I get up on the roof, I look at a metal vent chimney, and a little bit of rust right there. Okay, it's not draining all that good. That's the chase where it comes down. It comes down through a plywood chase into the attic. And then when I get down into the attic, there we go. I guess there's some water coming in there, just a little bit. One day that's going to be mold. It's going to be all kinds of other problems. So these are just a couple of examples of things that I find. So
Awesome.
I spent enough time, so I'll let you guys
No,
carry
that-
on, or if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Thanks so much, Jim. No, that it's super important to know. And, you know, you can't just trust that, you know, and like, you know, even if the seller, they're not trying to hide anything, but maybe they just don't even know about it. You know?
Well, that's almost always what it is. No one's trying to be nefarious. It's just they just don't know, and
Right.
that's what it is.
No, it's definitely important to do a home inspection. And, you know, a lot of those common problems. So yeah, I appreciate that. And another great thing about having Jim is, you know, even after the inspection, clients can go back and call or, you know, ask him any questions anytime. So that's really helpful.
Awesome.
Hey, Helen, have some questions for you about New World Title.
Sure. Thanks.
So New World Title is wonderful. I always love having them, you know, on our side. Feel like, you know, keep everyone in line a little bit. You guys are very structured and organized, and everything gets, you know, on time, and appreciate all that. Question about buyers: what happens at the closing, and what do they need to bring?
Sure. And I guess I should really address it for both sides, since a lot of the people that are viewing are selling and purchasing at the same time. So if you've bought already, you probably remember you'll want to bring your identification, of course, and whatever money is owed. Either you can wire it ahead of time. A lot of times we prefer that, or a cashier's check. There's different circumstances where you may need a power of attorney or other documentation, things like that. And then when you're selling, we always, again, suggest you have to bring at least 1 or 2 forms of ID for either way, and a check where you'd like your proceeds to go. So that's kind of nice. You get money back. And if you're buying and selling back to back, you can transfer the funds directly from your sale. If it's not the same title company to the next title company, you call that an assignment of funds, which is a very common thing when someone's buying and selling in a short time frame in Virginia. One thing for those of you that are thinking about doing this in Virginia, we have to record first before we can disperse proceeds. So if you are contingent on the proceeds from your sale, you will want to make sure in your real estate contract that the seller for the home you're purchasing is willing to accept an assignment of funds if you're settling like the same day or a day apart, because the funds may not be readily available. A lot of times people will say, oh, I'll sell my house at 10 and then I can go buy at 11, but the funds aren't available immediately. We have to record first. So that's just something to keep in mind. There's definitely ways to make it work, but just be upfront with your realtor and title company so they know how to best work the situation.
Perfect. Yeah. And great that you guys do e-recording, so it's nice and quick too.
That does help for sure.
And then for a purchase, what do you think about the importance of doing a survey and getting their title insurance?
Great question. So I think a lot of clients are, they're looking at all the different expenses that go into buying a home. And sometimes people don't want to have a survey, maybe similar to a home inspection, but a survey really shows you the property that you're buying. So it's, house location survey, the dimensions. A lot of times people say, well, there's a fence there already. I know where my property line is. Well, fences are not typical. I mean, they're close usually, but I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a fence that's perfectly on the property line every single spot. So I think it's really important. If it's a typical lot in Northern Virginia, they're usually run about $350. If you want the corners marked, it's a few $100s more, but they're not that expensive. And I feel like it gives you a lot of information about your property. We see problems on surveys quite a lot. And if you know about it ahead of time, you can address it with a seller and maybe they can move their shed that's over the property line or do something to make it right before you buy the house. Otherwise, down the road, you're trying to do something and you find out there's an issue. At that point, you can't really do anything. So I recommend surveys. We facilitate just ordering them, but we obviously use several different survey companies in the area. And then you also mentioned title insurance, which is another cost, but also very, very important. It covers anything that we can't see in title. So anything that's fraudulent, deeds that weren't properly, or mortgages that weren't properly released. We see all sorts of problems, unfortunately, that come up. People are like, oh, that never happens. Well, it's about 30% of cases there's something. Usually we can clean it up. It just takes a little bit of time, but some things are really major, and it's very important to make sure you have that insurance coverage. And it's just a one-time fee at settlement. So you don't have to pay. It's not like homeowners insurance that you pay over and over. You pay it once and it's good for the whole time you own the property and even after you sell it. So there's a lot more I can go on about that, but just in general, just to give you a brief idea about what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much. And I know for surveys too, it's helpful if there's the easements or anything too, that the county may be accessing their property, and so they don't see someone out there.
Yeah. So you have an easement running through this area, you wanted to put a pool down or something, so that can make a big difference. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And with the survey, that means there's no exclusions too. Is that correct? If you get...
So it's a good question. For the title insurance, if you get a survey, then there's survey coverage in your title insurance policy if you get the enhanced policy. But if there's an issue on the survey, then there's a known issue. So they'll take exception to that issue. But there are times where a survey, if there was an error done in the survey or the survey didn't go quite as detailed and there's an issue that just wasn't uncovered, then the title insurance policy will cover it. If you don't have a survey at all, then the title insurance just takes a blanket exception to anything that you could have found out from a survey.
Gotcha.
Oh, so I had a quick question. There's been some things over the last few years. It's advertised. It sounds to me like a scam, but I'm not sure. They talk about it's kind of the equivalent of identity theft of your property title, where all of a sudden you come and find out that somebody else has stolen your title through some sort of, I don't know, scheme thing. And it's like you pay a monthly fee and they're going to, just like the the identity theft guy that used to walk around with his social security number
Yes.
painted on the side of his truck, and he ended up getting hacked anyways. But I mean, um, is there anything to that, or is that
It's
just
a good, it's a good question. I actually have not done a whole lot of research on it, but I do get that question every once in a while for identity theft type issues where someone would steal your identity and go get a mortgage on your home that you own. That's kind of what it is. The enhanced owner's title insurance policy already covers that. And most people do buy the enhanced policy, which so it covers what we call post settlement forgery. So basically, if you have the enhanced policy, I don't think you would need that extra coverage. So I always encourage people to have that get the enhanced policy anyways, but maybe perhaps if someone didn't get owner's title insurance or only did the basic policy, then maybe it would make sense to get that additional coverage that you're mentioning. But I just recently started hearing about it. So I don't know a whole lot about it, but I believe if you have the enhanced policy, it covers the same types of issues.
It's a lot like the scams that, when you go to closing, all of the title fees that you pay, when Helen and her team go to record your note and your deed and stuff with the
County.
all of a sudden you're going to get, within a week, you're going to get a letter in the mail that says, pay $99.95 and we will make sure you get your deed. Because when you go and you look in your folder, you don't have the original. Well, of course you don't, but it takes several weeks for you to get it. And lo and behold, 6 weeks after, you've spent this money, you get the copy that you already paid for at closing. And then but it's just there's just all kinds of things. Yeah. So it's,
I recommend
beware.
just call me or their, loan officer or realtor if they get something like that, because they
Absolutely
pay those costs at closing. I just got a text 2 days ago about someone, same situation, and I hadn't heard that scam for a while. I was like, maybe it's going away. No, maybe it's back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always say make sure never send any wiring information over email. All that, you just have to make sure. You just never know.
That's really good advice too.
Yeah. Every transaction, and the big thing is, and yes, we've got a nice group on this call right now, but when you're buying a house, you're between your realtor, your lender, your home inspector, your title company, you want to have verbal communication with at all times, because you just, with fraud and all that stuff going on right now, it's scary that it's happening, but it is. And you just want to make sure you've got a good team to walk you through the process from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, does anyone have anything else to add before we sort of wrap it up on any other last minute thoughts?
Lauren, I had one question, and this is just a question that sometimes we get from people in the audience, is about and you may have already addressed this, Pat, so you can tell me if you did, but about the concept of bridge financing. Did you address that?
I did not. So, but I'm happy to bring that up. So basically a bridge concept is, and this does happen a lot with homes that have a lot of equity. So let's just say, hey, Jim, I'm going to use you for example. Jim wants to go out and buy another house. He's got a ton of equity in his current home. He only has $100,000 left on his $800,000 house. So he's got $700,000 of net equity, before costs and stuff in his home. But he wants to go buy that $1 million house down the road. But he doesn't have cash on hand, but he has the equity in his home. So what bridge financing is that we are going to get a loan against the equity that you have in the current home in order to put money down on the home so that you can secure financing for that property. Now, it sounds all easy, and sometimes it is, as long as that individual who is trying to buy as long as Jim is going to go and buy that new home is carrying 3 mortgages. And the reason why I say 3 mortgages or 3 liabilities is because he has to carry the new mortgage, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and if there's an HOA, plus the cost of the bridge loan, whatever that monthly payment is, plus the cost of the current loan that he has, even though it's only $100,000 left, he still has taxes, insurance, HOA, and whatever that is. So qualifications, and you might be able to afford all three. But that is part of the pre-approval process, knowing all of your options before you go and have Lauren take you to all nice properties. You want to know what your options are. Sometimes it's as easy as getting a home equity in your existing home and then paying it off right away the moment you sell the property. That's one option. The bridge financing, sometimes those costs are exorbitant. I've seen them cost anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 because it's a short-term loan, and the people that are doing those types of, if they know they're going to be doing, and it's only going to be maybe a 2-month loan or a 1-month loan, there's a lot of work that goes involved for that. So you just have your options.
And then the other question, and this might be for you, Lauren, is just the situations when you are buying a house or when you're selling your house and buying another house, the whole occupancy after settlement, that sort of situation, or even just moving and storing goods. I mean, do you want to talk a little bit about the peculiarities to that type of situation?
Yeah. So if you decide that you want to sell your house first before you have purchased a new one, or even if you're doing them simultaneously and there's a little bit of an overlap, you can, as a seller, especially now in more of the seller's market, it was easy to ask for a 60-day rent back, and oftentimes for free. Just again, depends on the market and all of that. And in that case, it actually gives you technically 90 days to search and find a house to settle into, because it's the 30 days leading up to settlement and then 60 days after that. So that could be a really good option. And if you happen to find a place earlier and you want to move out earlier, I'm sure the new buyers would happily, change the occupancy date. So that is a really great option, something that we've done a lot of this year, especially in sort of that quick turnover that it's been. So on the flip side, then you can also, provide that as something that's a little bit desirable as a buyer if the seller needs it and you're able to offer that up. Just kind of nice to have that flexibility and be able to negotiate that a little bit. So what people have done, and this also kind of goes back to, when I go to people's houses and we talk about what they need to do to get it ready, a lot of times decluttering is sort of on the list. We just want to, be able to showcase the house and not too many items in it, as best as possible. So a lot of people have gotten the pods where they'll either, leave out in a parking spot or their driveway, or, they'll take it somewhere and store it as well. So that's a good option just in the first phase of decluttering. And then also there's those moving companies that have those giant pods, and, they'll hold them for you and move them whenever you're ready. So, there's a lot of great moving companies that have a lot of different options for that. So that's been really helpful.
Super. So that's certain. Those are some of the questions that I have received. But turn it over to you, Lauren, if you just want to thank the panelists, and we can tie things up.
Great, perfect. Yeah, I mean, like we were saying, this is a big general overview of the process. Each one is very specific. So, based on your situation, the current market conditions, your desires of, what you want in a house, and sort of, like I talked about a little bit about how aggressive you want to be. But, we're all here and happy to help you. And thank you guys so much for joining. And thank you to also the amazing sponsors. The wonderful panelists here talking are also sponsoring, again, for that entrepreneurship fund for Newington Forest. So the school will be able to use these funds however the students, teachers, parents see fit. So they'll come up with ideas. Maybe they want to make a garden or a book box or whatever they want to do. And so we're really happy to provide these workshops with information, but then also do some good for the community and help support it a little bit. So.
And Lauren, I did order the items that we discussed, and they should be in about 2 weeks.
Awesome.
And we can deliver them to the, once we get contact, I'll let you get in touch with the principal of the school, and we can drop them off for safety.
I love that. Awesome. Thanks so much, Pat.
You got it.
Great.
Thanks everybody. And we'll look forward to hearing more from you, and hopefully people will connect with you on these topics and help them with their real estate transactions. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fraser. Appreciate it.